This isn't a story about religion or a sermon or a mystical daydream. It's the real-life journey of a man who stepped beyond what we usually call living and came back with answers. His name was Edgar Cayce. He witnessed things most of us only feel in the stillness of night when the world fades away and we are left with just one question: what lies beyond this life? Cayce wasn't your typical spiritualist. He never chased the spotlight, didn't form a following, and never promised redemption. He was just a quiet man from Kentucky, soft-spoken with a humble background, a country boy through and through. But something extraordinary happened to him, something that would alter not just his life, but possibly yours as well. He called it going into a sleep state. But those who heard what he shared during those times knew it was far more than simple rest. While his body stayed behind, stretched out and motionless, his awareness left. This wasn't daydreaming or guided meditation. He actually stepped out of his body. In his words, it began with a kind of ringing sound followed by light. Then everything faded away. No sense of the body, no feeling of time, just pure being. And what happened next was even more unusual. He could see, though not with his physical eyes, but with more clarity than he had ever known. He described the soul slipping out of the body gently. No pain, no dread. It was like shrugging off a heavy coat. It felt strange for a moment, and then it felt light. He talked about observing himself lying there in that trance, seeing the room from above, noticing the people gathered around him, asking questions. And then things shifted. He found himself in a place without floor, ceiling, or walls. He called it the sphere of light. It was silent, yet he instantly understood all he needed. Thoughts weren't heard, they just arrived fully formed, like knowing, without being told. And within that brightness, he sensed other beings, souls' presences. He didn't know their names, but he felt deeply familiar with them, and they with him. There were no spoken words, only feeling, memory, recognition. He described the soul going through a kind of reflection. Not judgment, not punishment, but remembrance, like a film reel of your life. Only in this one, you don't just see your actions, you feel everything you caused in others. Every word, every deed, even the silence. And through that, you come to know who you truly were. This, he said, was just the beginning. And if you are still listening, it may mean you are ready to discover more. After one of these journeys outside himself, Cayce sometimes had trouble returning. He said waking up didn't feel like coming back from a dream. It felt like leaving another world, one sharper and more meaningful than this one. It wasn't a return to normal life, but a return to a shell, a kind of restriction. He often said, real life isn't here. We're just visitors, learners passing through. And it wasn't a poetic thought. During his trance states, he didn't just leave his body, he caught a glimpse of what lies beyond. He spoke of places that looked like cities, made of light arranged in layers and levels. Some were calm and still, like a quiet lake at dusk. Others were full of motion and transformation. Every soul ended up exactly where it belonged, based on its own energy, its light within. There was no judgment day, no final decree. You didn't go somewhere, you simply arrived at the place that matched who you already were. No pretending, no hiding, just the truth. Cayce explained that the soul doesn't carry the outward actions of life, but the heart behind them. It's the spirit of what we did that stays with us, not the act itself. And if someone lived in lies, it felt like weight. If they lived in love, it felt like rising. But even that wasn't a punishment. It was a chance, a call to grow, to wake up, to come back to what matters. He saw souls choosing to return to life, not because they were told to, but because they felt a pull, a deep longing to learn more, to feel again, to love, to stumble, to believe. No one forced them. It came from within. He once described witnessing a soul getting ready to be born again. It didn't look like a story playing out. It looked like a symphony, a vast movement of light energy and meaning flowing together, becoming a human life. And in that moment, he understood. We're not random. Not one of us is an accident. Each of us is a decision. You come here, he once said, because there's something inside you that only the earth can bring to light. And this, he believed, was the most vital part, because none of it came with showmanship. Cayce never pushed people to believe. He invited them to remember. And people did. They didn't just hear his words. They felt them. Because he wasn't preaching, he was reminding. After some trances, he'd cry not out of fear, but from the weight of feeling something so real that our daily life seemed almost unreal. He admitted the hardest part wasn't what he saw. The hardest part was coming back and pretending not to know even when he did. He believed that if people could recall who they really were, they'd lose their fear of death. Because death to him wasn't an ending. It was just the next chapter, one even more vivid than this one. So now you're wondering, what did he see? After that, during one of his most profound trances, Edgar Cayce described something astonishing. He didn't just witness the world beyond death, he saw the exact moment the soul departs from the body. According to him, it's not a shock, not some violent break. It feels more like a release, the way you finally breathe out after holding it in for far too long. And in that single breath, everything shifts. You're no longer in your body, but you're still very much present. You're aware, you feel, you sense. But it's clearer now, sharper. There's no more pain, no more filters, dulling what you experience. He said that at first you notice yourself, your body, the people nearby, but it all seems oddly far away, like something you once knew, but don't quite belong to anymore. And then there's this light, not harsh or blinding, but warm, like comfort calling you home. It doesn't pull, it welcomes. It doesn't demand, it soothes. And it's not angels or loved ones who greet you at that threshold. Cayce spoke of beings, entities you can't quite describe because they don't have a shape or face. But you feel them. You know they're there. It's like the presence of love, something you don't have to prove, because it simply exists. You sense it deep within. He described it as a moment of remembering, like you're coming back to a place that's always been a part of you, even though you forgot. But he emphasized something else. It's more than just a reunion. It's a moment of truth. There's no judgment waiting there. No punishment. What happens is, you're shown your life, your whole life laid out so clearly. Not the events themselves, but the emotions. What you felt, what others felt around you. Everything you ever sent into the world comes back, so you can understand. And if you ever caused someone pain, you feel that same pain not to be punished, but to learn. So you'll know deep down what that person carried because of you. And if you ever truly loved someone, you feel that again too. Only more deeply, more purely, without anything getting in the way. It's not a courtroom. It's a mirror. There's no divine voice demanding answers. It's just you, without fear, without excuses, asking yourself the only question that matters. Did I become the person I was meant to be? Sometimes, he said, souls hesitate to move on. They're afraid. They're still clinging to people, to unfinished business, to the world they left. And so they linger in what he called a space of gray light. There's no terror there, but no peace either. It's like standing in a hallway with no doors stuck between choices, until you're ready to go forward. or go back. But what Cayce shared next was even more extraordinary. He spoke of levels the soul moves through, depending not on wealth or status, but on light, on the purity of the life you lived. The more you loved through difficulty, the more you grew in spirit. And these levels, they aren't places exactly. They're states of being. They're vibrations. You don't climb up to them. You remember who you are, and in remembering, you become that again. When Cayce reached this point in his description, his voice would soften, as if what he was about to say should be whispered. Yet he still said it. Beyond all those levels, he spoke of silence. Not an empty one, but a silence like the very breath of the cosmos. There are no shapes there, no names, not even a memory of who you were. Only essence, only the soul shining in its original light. I can't put it into words, he said. It's like going back to the source of all things, to a place where you and God aren't separate anymore, but one and the same. But Cayce also said that reaching that place requires letting go. And that's not always easy. Even after death, we cling to regrets, to our wants, to who we think we are. And every one of those attachments weighs the soul down, holding it back from rising. He saw some souls wandering because they couldn't forgive, not themselves, not others, not the world. Some feared being forgotten, afraid their life hadn't mattered. And then these beings would appear again, not to save, but to remind, to whisper, you are more than you believe, and you are never alone. He said souls are sometimes shown their future lives not as a form of payback, but as a gift, an opportunity. Not all at once, only what they're ready to see. And along with that glimpse comes a choice to go back or to stay. And here's what's truly unexpected. Many souls, even knowing all the pain that comes with earthly life, want to return. Because over there, they suddenly remember life isn't meant to be suffering. It's a chance, a gift, a path to love, to grow, to remember who we are. He said, the soul doesn't come back to suffer. It comes back to become. He saw how souls choose their next life, not out of punishment, but purpose. They pick their parents, their country, their time, even their trials, not as victims, but as creators acting out of faith in themselves. And this Cayce believed was the most profound truth he had ever uncovered. We are not accidents. Our pain isn't random. The people we meet, they're not just coincidence. Every part of it matters. Every bit of it means something. Everything that comes our way reflects what we brought into this life, what we needed to confront, what we came here to remember. You're not a body searching for purpose, he once said. Your purpose itself, living in a body. At times, his words felt like riddles, as though he was holding back, as though he sensed not everyone was ready to hear the whole truth. Yet within those cryptic lines, something resonated deeply. He'd say things like, the real truth isn't about what comes after death. It's in what you choose to do while you're still alive. Or he'd put it this way, there is no death, just a shift to another room. Or even more piercing, that the hardest part isn't dying. The real challenge is being true to who you are. And from there, it started to feel like he'd glimpsed more than just the afterlife. It was as if he'd seen a map, a soul's map, complete with roads, forks, places where we lose touch with ourselves, and moments where we find our way back. One day, Cayce said something that stuck. The soul's deepest pain isn't losing the body. It's forgetting what it truly is. He believed most people move through life half asleep, afraid of what they might discover if they woke up. But waking up, he said, is the real reason we're here in the first place. In one of his trance states, he described a vision that still leaves people shaken. He saw the soul of someone who had just passed, not standing before a being or judge, but facing a kind of conscious presence, a field of pure awareness. You don't face someone else, he said. You stand before yourself, not the version you were, but the one you could have been. And between those two versions, there's a gap. Everything painful you felt in life, fear, sorrow, isolation, was really just the space between you and your truest self. He said that in that moment the soul sees it all, every deed, every thought. But what matters most isn't the action itself, it's the source behind it. Was it born of fear or love? According to him, the world beyond this one is like a mirror, and it only asks a single question. Did you live with your heart open? Though many called him a prophet, he rejected that label. I'm no prophet, he insisted. I just remember a bit more than most, and that means I have a responsibility to share it. He didn't care for religion, doctrine, or spiritual factions. His message was simple: be the light even when everything around you feels dark. One of his most striking cases involved a woman grieving her husband's sudden death. She was heartbroken, lost. Cayce closed his eyes, slipped into trance, and then said, "He hasn't gone far. He's right here, watching over you. He wants you to know, don't grieve. Don't shut yourself off from the world." Then he added, "I didn't die. I just moved ahead a little." When the session ended, the woman cried not out of sorrow, but out of relief, as if something vast and unseen had truly listened to her. Cayce said, "The soul is never truly lost. Even if we pass in fear or confusion, we are always found again. Light finds its way to the tiniest spark because no one is here by accident. Each person is a response to a timeless call, a living answer to an ancient prayer." He also spoke of what he called the transition corridor, a place between lives where the soul is purified, where it releases the things it couldn't grasp in its last life, and where it chooses whether to move forward or return. The choice we make isn't about being punished. It's about being trusted. The universe doesn't hand down judgments, it presents us with chances. And the soul doesn't resist. It chooses because it feels. The path hasn't ended yet. In one of Edgar Cayce's final trance sessions, he described witnessing a soul heading back into the light. But it wasn't crying from pain. It wept from recognition, recognizing how much it had misjudged itself during life and how deeply it had been cherished all along. After those trance moments, Cayce would often sit in silence, not due to a lack of words, but because words felt too small to carry what he had experienced. He once said that some truths aren't meant to be spoken, they're meant to be felt in the stillness, shared only with those who can remember on their own. One day, he said something unusual. You don't have to be perfect, you have to be real. And within that phrase lived everything he had come to understand. From what he described, the space beyond this life holds no scales, no ledgers, no judgment. There's only you, without pretenses, without fear, stripped of defenses. And the question that waits for you there sounds something like this: did you truly become who you are? He explained that souls often come back to physical life, not to be punished, but because of love, because they long to finish something, to find clarity, to forgive, to grow in love. Every hardship, every wound is not a punishment. It's a gentle nudge, a sign that you've wandered off course, and that it's time to come home to yourself. Though Cayce left behind thousands of readings, he always felt the real message couldn't be found in the papers. What truly mattered was the way he lived and the spirit he carried. He believed that everything that happens to us is part of a larger awakening, that every soul, even the one furthest lost, will one day hear that quiet call, not from outside, but from within. He often encouraged people not to take his word for it. Instead, he'd say, ask yourself, close your eyes, listen closely. Where your thinking stops, something deeper stirs the memory of who you have always been. And maybe that's why you are hearing these words now, because something in you already knows. Something within you is already humming with a tune Cayce called the soul's voice. He spoke of how each of us receives a kind of invitation, a moment when the world seems to split just a little and light pours through the break. In that moment, all you are asked to do is not flee. Just pause and say, I hear it. And if you've made it this far, maybe this is your moment. Maybe it's not an accident, not just another video, but a quiet sign. A sign that you've already started the journey home. If something stirred in you while listening to this, even faintly, don't brush it aside. Say something in the comments. Did you feel the call too? Or just leave a little sign, a heart, a period, a quiet. I'm here, so that others coming along behind you will see and know they're not walking alone. Thank you for walking with me through these words. If something stirred in you, even quietly, trust that it wasn't by chance. The soul remembers long before the mind understands. And maybe, just maybe, this is one of those moments when something ancient within you began to wake. If it did, honor it, stay with it, and don't forget you're not alone. Others have felt it too. This space, this pause, this whisper of home, it's yours. Until we meet again, not just in words, but in that deeper place where truth lives and the journey truly begins. Take care of your soul. It's already listening.